It's so strange in here. Oh, hi, I'm Crystal from Group 4, and today we are tasked to complete a mission for our members to escape this terrifying jungle. And we can only do so by answering a set of 8 questions correctly. Are you ready? Let's move forward to level 1. Anasta, it's your turn.
So, are you all excited? Because we are in another mission wherein we need to solve different problems, different challenges, and I am the first one given the privilege to solve such problems for us to advance in the next level. So, what are we waiting for? Let's go for problem 1. Olivia went up to play at their tree house and spotted her brother Ken in front of the house in an adjacent valley at an angle of depression of 30 degrees. The tree is 25 meters high. How far is the house from the base of the tree house? Also, solve for all the trigonometric functions. So, remembering the concepts, I think I forgot them. Oh, I remember. So for us to solve this, we need to illustrate the given situation. So given here is a tree house which is 25 meters high and the angle of depression of 30 degrees. So we can plot that in 2 different right triangles. Again, a right triangle consists of a right angle which is 90 degrees. So given that the angle of depression is 30 degrees and one of its angles is 90 degrees, given that it is a right triangle, so it is easy to say that a whole triangle sums up to a 180 degrees. So, given here is the complement of 30 degrees, which is 60 degrees. That's why we have come up with the answer of 60 degrees. And given that the other side where Kent is, the alternate interior angles which are equal, so it is easy to say that 30 degrees is also equal to 30 degrees. Given that 90 degrees plus 60 degrees plus 30 degrees is equal to 180 degrees. So that is all the angles for this given triangle. So with the given information, we can now solve how far is the house from the base of the tree house. So, by the use of tan 30 degrees is equal to 25 over x is equal to 25 over tan 30 degrees, x is equal to 25 over 3 meters. So that is the total distance of the house from the base of the tree house. Now for us to solve the last side of the triangle, which is the hypotenuse, all we need to do is c is equal to square root of a squared plus b squared. C is equal to square root of 25 squared plus 25 square root of t squared. C is equal to 50 meters. Now that all the sides of our triangle, are you all excited? Now that all the sides of our triangle have their own values, we can solve for all the trigonometric functions. So first we have sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So we have sine is equal to 25 over 50, or simply 1/2. Cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 25 square root of 3 over 50, or simply put square root of 3 over 2. Third, we have tan, which is opposite over adjacent. So given the values, 25 over 25 square root of 3, or simply square root of 3 over 3. Next is our cosecant. Cosecant is equal to 1 over sine, which is 1 over 1/2 is equal to 2. Next is the secant. 1 over cos, or 1 over cosine. Secant is equal to 1 over square root of 3 over 2, or 2 square root of 3 over 3. Lastly, we have the cotangent, which is equal to 1 over tan, or 1 square root of 3 over 3 is equal to square root of 3. Now we have all the trigonometric functions. Now to integrate the other subject, which is general mathematics, let us also use the same problem. So we have the values here. A, 25 square root of 3 meters is the total distance of the base of the tree house from Kent's home. B, angle of depression is 30 degrees. And C, the tree's height is 25 meters high. Express C and negate B, arrow negate A. Second, express this into symbol. The angle of depression is 30 degrees and the tree's height is 25 meters high. So from all the concepts that we've learned, so it's easy for us to say what's the answer for this given question. So for the first one, you have, if the tree's height is 25 meters high and the angle of depression is not 30 degrees, then 25 square root of 3 meters is not the total distance of the base of the treehouse from Kent's home. So that is the answer for C, and negate B, arrow negate A. So for the second one, which is words are given and we need to solve for the given expression or for the given symbols. The angle of depression is 30 degrees and tree's height is 25 meters high. So for that statement, we used C and B, and our logical operator is AND. And AND is symbol like this. So the correct answer here is C and B with the use of symbol of this. Next. We're on to our second problem. Are you all excited? Because after this, we can advance to the next level where Ate Casa will lead you to our fun adventures. So now, let's move on. Problem 2. Aling Linda is to build a ramp in front of her own house. How long will the ramp be if the door is 5 feet above ground level and the angle of elevation is 45 degrees? Also, solve for all the trigonometric functions. So, just like what we did earlier, we need to illustrate such given problem. So, given here is a door which is 5 feet, and we need to have two different right triangles, which, as you can see here in the illustration, it involves 90 degrees and the angle of elevation here is 45 degrees. So in simply put, the right triangle sums up to a 180 degrees and 45 degrees is the half of 90 degrees. It is easy to say that the other angle is also 45 degrees, which also sums up to 180 degrees because 90 degrees plus 45 degrees plus 45 degrees is equal to 180, okay? So much of that. So what we need to know here is how long will the ramp be if the door is 5 feet above ground level and the angle of elevation is 45 degrees. So again, just like what we did earlier, we need to use tan. So tan 45 degrees is equal to 5 over x. X is equal to 5 over tan 45 degrees. We have x is equal to 5 feet. Now for us to get the missing side, which is the hypotenuse, we can use it by the Pythagorean theorem, or we can simply put it as C is equal to square root of a squared plus b squared, so we can actually get the value of C. So C is equal to square root of 5 squared plus 5 squared. C is equal to 5 square root of 2 feet. So that is the hypotenuse. So now that we have all the sides of our triangle, what we need to do is solve for all the trigonometric function. So first, sine, again, opposite of our hypotenuse. 5 over 5 square root of 2, or square root of 2 over 2. Cosine, which is also the same of sine, since both are 45 degrees. Cosine is equal to 5 over 5 square root of 2, or square root of 2 over 2. Tan is equal to opposite over adjacent. Tan is equal to 5 over 5, or simply 1. Cosecant is equal to 1 over sine. So it is 1 over square root of 2 over 2, or simply square root of 2. Which is also the same as secant, because secant is equal to 1 over cosine, and 1 over square root of 2 over 2 is equal to square root of 2. Lastly, our cotangent, which is simply 1 over 1. Our cotangent is equal to 1. Now, again, to integrate general mathematics to the trigonometric functions, I also use the other problem for us to express this. So A, the door is 5 feet above ground level. B, the total length of Aling Nana's ramp is 5 feet. C, angle of elevation is 45 degrees. So express B, two-headed arrow, or as we can say, if and only if, A and B. Second, the total length of Aling Nana's ramp is 5 feet and the door is not 5 feet above ground level. So, for the first one, we have the total length of Aling Nana's ramp is 5 feet if and only if the door is 5 feet above ground level and angle of elevation is 45 degrees. For the second one, the given statements are as follow, B and A. So, given that the logical operator used is and the second statement is negative, or there's a not in there, so it simply means that there's a negation. So our given the answer for this problem is B, and with this symbol, and negate A. So that is all for our first two problems. I hope you enjoyed this fun travel, and let's get ready for Atika's next level, and let us show her our support for the advancement.
Now that we've gotten to the next level, we need to solve 2 more problems in order for another one of our members to advance. Let's start, shall we? For the next problem, Hawkeye is on the rooftop of a 40-meter tall building. He shoots an arrow down to a target that's on the ground 80 meters away from him. Using knowledge in trigonometric functions and the identities and the given information, number 1, find the angle of depression. Number 2, find the ratio of the distance between Hawkeye and the target to the distance between the target and the ground floor of the building, or cosecant x. And lastly, express if A and B then C in a verbal sentence. If A, the ratio of the height of the building to the distance between Hawkeye and the target is 1/2. Letter B, the distance between the target and the building is 40 squared of 3 meters. And letter C, the angle of elevation from the target looking up to Hawkeye is 30 degrees. So now let us solve for them. For the first one, we need to find the angle of depression. So here we have a diagram that represents the problem. So in order to get the opposite side of x, which is our angle of depression, we need to use the Pythagorean theorem. By using that, we could get 40 squared of 3 meters. So now that we have the measurement of the opposite side, we can now solve for sine x. So sine x is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. And in our given here, sine x is equal to 40 squared of 3 over 80, or square root of 3 over 2. Now to get the angle of depression, which is x, we need to find the arc sine of square root of 3 over 2, which is in this case 60 degrees. And therefore our angle of depression is 60 degrees. For the second one, we need to find cosecant x, or the ratio of the distance between Hawkeye and the target, which is the hypotenuse, and the distance between the target and the building, or the opposite side. Now since that is asking for the ratio between the hypotenuse and the opposite side, or h over o, we can say that that is cosecant x, which is the reciprocal of sine x, which is opposite over hypotenuse. So since we've already solved a while ago for the sine x, which is square root of 3 over 2, using the reciprocal identity, we can get cosecant x is equal to 80 square root of 3 over 40 times 3, or 80 square root of 3 over 120. We get the lowest term, and we get 2 square root of 3 over 3. And therefore, we can say that cosecant x is equal to 2 square root of 3 over 3. Lastly, we just need to express if A and B then C in a verbal sentence, if A, the ratio of the height of the building to the distance between Hawkeye and the target is 1/2. Letter B, the distance between the target and the building is 40 square root of 3. And letter C, the angle of elevation from the target looking up to Hawkeye is 30 degrees. Now, our answer in this one is if the ratio of the height of the building to the distance between Hawkeye and the target is 1/2, and the distance between the target and the building is 40 square root of 3, then the angle of elevation from the target looking up to Hawkeye is 30 degrees. So we came up with this answer because in our given, A and B is in a parenthesis, so we need the conjunction of A and B before we solve for the conditional of C. Moving on to the last problem for this level, we have Icarus could shoot lasers from his eyes. 15 meters from where he's standing, a deviant is floating 20 meters from the height of Icarus' eyes. Given this information, number 1, find out how far Icarus should shoot the lasers in order to hit the deviant. Number 2, find the angle of elevation. Number 3, using trigonometric identities, find cosine x if sine x is 20 over 25 or 4. Lastly, express if not A, then not B and not C. In a verbal sentence, if A, the angle of depression is 36.87 degrees, letter B, the deviant is floating 20 meters from the height of Icarus' eyes, and letter C, Icarus could shoot the laser as far as 25 meters. Now to solve for them, here we have another diagram representing the problem. For the first one, find out how far Icarus should shoot the lasers in order to hit the deviant. We need to find the hypotenuse. So since we are given 20 meters and 15 meters as two of the sides, we can just use the Pythagorean theorem, which is 20 squared plus 15 squared is equal to y squared. and in this case it's 400 plus 225 equals y squared, 625 equals y squared, and lastly we have y equals 25. So our answer for our hypotenuse is 25 meters. Next one, we need to find x, or the angle of elevation. In order to do that, we can use tan x, which is the opposite over adjacent. In this diagram, we can see that the opposite side of x is 20 meters and the adjacent is 15 meters. So we have tan x is equal to 20 over 15, or 4 over 3. So our tan 4/3 is equal to 53.13 degrees, and from here we can say that the angle of elevation is 53.13 degrees. Next, we need to find cosine x. For this, we will use the trigonometric identity tan x is equal to sine x over cosine x. Since we've already solved for tan x earlier, we don't need to solve for that now. Although we need to find sine x in order to solve for this. So sine x is equal to the opposite side over the hypotenuse. In this case, we have 20 over 25, or 4 over 5. And using that, we have 4/3 is equal to 4/5 over cosine x, or cosine x times 4/3 equals 4/5, and cosine x is equal to 4/5 over 4/3, or 4/5 times 3/4. Multiplying this, we have 5 over 3. So now we can say that cosine x is 5 over 3. And lastly, express if not A, then not B and not C. In a verbal sentence, if A, the angle of depression is 36.87 degrees, letter B, the deviant is floating 20 meters from the height of Icarus' eyes, and letter C, Icarus could shoot the laser as far as 25 meters. Our answer for this is, if the angle of depression is not 36.87 degrees, then the deviant is not floating 20 meters from the height of Icarus' eyes, and he could not shoot the laser as far as 25 meters. Now that we have completed all the problems for this level, we can now advance to the next one with our next member, TM.
Congratulations for stepping up to level 3. In order to move to the next level, we need to solve another 2 problems. Let's start, shall we? Grease went to a playground and saw a slide. She went up to the slide and enjoyed her ride down. How long is the slide that Grease rode down when its height is 2 meters and is 3 meters long on the ground? Find its angle of depression and elevation. First, we need to find the hypotenuse. So to find the hypotenuse, we have the formula c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Substitute the given, we have c squared is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. Evaluate, we have c squared is equal to 25. Squared both sides, we have c is equal to 5 meters. But the first problem is not done yet. Still, we need to find the angle of depression and elevation. So let's find the angle of depression first. In order to guide us, we have SOHCAHTOA, which represents sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent. As you can see in the figure, we need to find the value of y. So to find the value of y, we must analyze the given figure. The only given we have is the opposite of y and the adjacent of y. So we will use tangent. Tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent. Substitute, we have tangent y is equal to 4 over 3. Evaluate, we have y is equal to tangent raised to negative 1, 4 over 3. Let's calculate. So we have y is equal to 53.1 degrees. The other one, we have to find the angle of elevation. We have the opposite and adjacent also. So we will use the tangent again. Tan x is equal to opposite over adjacent. Substitute, we have tangent x is equal to 3/4. X is equal to 10 raised to negative 1, 3/4. We have x is equal to 36.9 degrees. Problem number 1 of level 3 is not yet over. We still have to express the given symbols into verbal sentences using the sentences above. The first given is if B and D, then E. Since the given used a caret and an arrow facing right, we will use and if then. If the angle of depression of slide is 53.1 degrees and the angle of elevation of the slide is 36.9 degrees, then the figure is a right triangle. So for the next problem, we have not D if and only if, not A or not C. The angle of elevation of the slide is not 36.9 degrees if and only if the height of the slide is not 3 meters high or the length of the slide on the ground is not 4 meters. And now we're done with the problem number 1 of level 3. Let's move on to the next problem and last problem of level 3. Now we're here to solve the last problem of level 3. A construction worker measures the possible height of the stairs with 13 meters elevated distance from the first floor to the second floor and a length of 12 meters on the ground. Find the height of the stairs and its angle of depression and elevation. Again, to find the leg, we will use the Pythagorean theorem, which is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared. Substitute, we have 13 squared is equal to a squared plus 12 squared. Evaluate, we have a squared is equal to 25. Square root both sides, we have a is equal to 5 meters. Next is to find the angle of depression. Like what we did before, we will use the SOHCAHTOA as a guide. So since we have a leg and hypotenuse, we will use for the value of y is sine. So sine y is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Substitute, we have sine y is equal to 12 over 13. Y is equal to sine raised to negative 1, 12 over 13. Let's calculate. We have y is equal to 67.4 degrees. Next is to find the angle of elevation. To find the angle of elevation, we have cosine x is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Let's substitute. We have 12 over 13. Same process, x is equal to cosine raised to negative 1, 12 over 13. Then we have x is equal to 22.6 degrees. Let's move on to the last and final set of problems in level 3. So, for our last problem, we have to express the given verbal sentences to symbols. So first, we have to given the stairs is 5 meters high and the angle of elevation is 22.6 degrees if and only if the slope of the distance of the stairs is 13 meters and the length of the stairs on the ground is 12 meters. Since the given use the words if and only if and we will use the caret and an arrow facing both sides. We have open and close parentheses A and B if and only if, open and close parentheses C and D. Next, we have if the length of the stairs of the ground is not 12 meters and the stairs is not 5 meters high, then the slope distance of the stairs is not 13 meters high. Since the given use the words not and if, then we will use the symbols tilde, caret, and an arrow facing right. We have if open and close parentheses not D and not A, then not C. Now you have passed the level 3. Congratulations, you may now move to the next level.
And now we're moving on up to our last level. For problem number 7, Caroline's family granted her wish of reserving a trip to El Nido, Palawan with the condition that she'll perform well in her trigonometry class. Immediately as they arrived, they are reminded to keep at least 153 feet distance from poisonous shiny coral reefs. Cora decided to try scuba diving and noticed a shiny coral below her with an angle of depression of 65 degrees and she is approximately 150 feet from the seabed. Help Caroline to first find her distance from the coral. We need to create an imaginary right triangle in order to answer this question, having Caroline's distance to the coral equal to the hypotenuse. The right angle is already equal to 90 degrees, and since 65 degrees is the depression angle, 65 degrees is also the angle of elevation, which is complementary to the third angle of the triangle, which is 90 minus 65 is equal to 25 degrees. Now that we have all of our angles and the given leg of 150 feet, we will find the other sides using the law of sine. A over sine A is equal to B over sine B is equal to C over sine C. Substituting the values of A over sine A is equal to B over sine B, we will get 150 feet over sine 65, which is approximately 165.51 feet, multiplied by sine B or sine 25 degrees. The answer will be 69.95 feet, which is the opposite side or the length below. Same with looking for the hypotenuse. A over sine A is equal to C over sine C, which is equal to 165.51 feet, and that is Caroline's distance from the coral, meaning that she observes the 153 feet distance requirement. For number 2, we need to look for trigonometric values using the SOHCAHTOA property. For the sine function, opposite over hypotenuse or B over A is equal to 0.42. Cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse is equal to 0.91. For tangent, opposite over adjacent is equal to 0.47. For cosecant, secant, and cotangent, we will use a reciprocal identity, which are 1 over sine, 1 over cosine, and 1 over tangent, that are equal to 2.40, 1.1, and 2.13 respectively. And for number 3, express each verbal sentences into symbol. For letter A, Caroline is 165.51 feet away from the shiny coral. For letter B, the angle of depression is 65 degrees. For letter C, she's 150 feet far from the seabed. And for letter D, Caroline observed the 153 feet distance requirement from coral reefs. So for number 1, if she's not 150 feet far from the seabed and the angle of depression is not 65 degrees, then Caroline is not 165.51 feet away from the shiny coral. So we notice that all of the statements are negated, so we will use the negation symbol. So it will be negation C and negation B, then negation A. And for number 2, if Caroline is 165.51 feet away from the shiny coral, then she's 150 feet far from the seabed, and she's 150 feet far from the seabed, and Caroline observed the 153 feet distance requirement from coral reefs. So it will be A if A, then C and B and D. For the last problem, problem number 7, a doctor at Philippine General Hospital aims to assess a COVID-19 survivor's heart rate using a 64 inches long treadmill at an inclination of 8 degrees. Assist the doctor to first find how high the front of the treadmill is raised and the length of the ground covered by it. Oh, how do we solve this? Oh, it's just the same as the previous number. In letter A, we will use the sine function, so it will be sine theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. So it will be sine 8 degrees is equal to opposite over 64 or equal to 8.91 inches. For letter B, we will use the cosine function of cosine theta is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, or cosine 8 degrees is equal to adjacent over 64 or will be equal to 63.38 inches. And these are the other two sides of the triangle. For number 2, find the ratio of the length of the rear roller that touches the ground and the end part of the ground covered by the treadmill. Oh, that is equal to the adjacent side, to the front part of the treadmill and the end part of the ground covered by it. And that is equal to the opposite side. So it's just simply, yes, cotangent theta is equal to opposite over adjacent, or cotangent theta is equal to 63.38 over 8.91, and the answer is 7.11, or approximately square root of 79 and 17 over 50. And for the last number, number 3, express each symbols into verbal sentences. For letter A, the treadmill is 64 inches long. For letter B, it is inclined by 8 degrees. For letter C, the treadmill is raised 8.91 inches high. And for letter D, the ratio of the ground to the height of the treadmill is 7.11. So for number 1, A and B, then C. So we will notice that A and B are combined using the if and then symbol. So if the treadmill is 64 inches long and it is inclined by 8 degrees, followed by the then and the statement C, so it will be then the treadmill is raised 8.91 inches high. For number 2, it uses the negation symbol, so it is negation symbol C, then negation A, and negation B, and negation C. So it uses the if and then symbol, so it will be if the ratio of the ground to the height of the treadmill is not 7.11, then the treadmill is not 64 inches long, and it is not inclined by 8 degrees, and the treadmill is not raised 8.91 inches high.
Wow! We complete all the levels by answering each question correctly. Wait, am I hearing? Oh yes, that's a rescue helicopter. Thank you for helping us, guys. Goodbye.